We do have a site that we started last year called Social Media Owls, where we do social media work. The bulk of our work is social media, because it's my opinion that the bulk of small business owners' problems usually can be solved with a good social media presence. Like if you get you get your Twitter account and Facebook, if you're a musician, MySpace, Reverb Nation, if you get that really flowing, you'll find that your organic search and everything else will usually sometimes will take care of itself. That's another issue, but what we do, your answer to your question of when somebody comes in us and says, "Here's my stuff. What can you do?" There's just so many factors. Competition in their industry. Of course, there's always about 100 things that fly out of my mouth of, well, this needs to be changed, and you don't have a title, and you say that you want to be, and that you're this, but I actually think that you're that. Just all these factors, competition really pretty much as far as price is the biggest factor. Like, if you came to me and said that, you wanted to, drive a lot of traffic into or be a prominent figure for something like golf, I would tell you, well, that's going to cost a lot of money because there's so many players in the game, and that's just unfortunately that's the thing, is there's really no and everybody has their own vision of where they're going and what they want to do, and so that always plays a part. So it basically it's a long conversation with the individual.
So it depends a lot about the category and where they want to
go,
etc.
Right.
So
because some stuff is real easy. Some people come to us and say, I actually do. I handle my mother's website, which is a baby blanket website. And it was real easy because there's just not a lot of competition out there for crocheted baby blankets. So we could threw some stuff around and got it done quickly, and of course she has all kinds of top 10 rankings, and she gets traffic and she's happy and she's doing her thing, and that's an easy thing. But we find usually most people come to us, they're looking for a lot of times the top ways to make money online, and so you mentioned PPC, and that's always, PPC is always an important part of your complete breakfast. But it's crazy. I mean, I love the consulting side of it. But we are a full-fledged service business, so we do everything from the consultation all the way to final delivery, including the design and everything else. But the consulting part is the most fun because you look at something and sometimes I'm like, all this person does, all they do need is 90% PPC, and they're just gonna rock and roll with it. Sometimes I say paying for ads is not going to get them anywhere. So there's just such a wide range of
So SEO is not always the answer for someone.
True, exactly. It true. I mean, sometimes we say, what? They don't even need a site. They don't. They really. I was just talking with one team member last night. Like 12 hours ago, we were saying that there's this one a really high profile photographer who's done lots of celebrity photographs and things like that, and he came to us and he's like, I heard about you, but I really don't know what you can do for me. And his site is a complete flash site. There's no text on it. There's no anything, and the photographs just go by, every 5 seconds. And I told the team, like, I don't even want to change the site, even though it doesn't have a title, even though all the things aren't done. There's nothing done correctly on the site at all. But I said, what the guy should do, is just have, he needs to build his social media presence. He needs to be big on Twitter. He needs to be big on Facebook. And then like this, the site is just. It's just like a monument, it's like oh, you look at it and go, oh, that's pretty, it doesn't need, it doesn't need PPC, it doesn't need anything. So, every business is, he's a business, Yeah.
Now, let me ask you, speaking of social media, and this is basically your opinion, your expertise, where do you think Facebook and Twitter are going? I mean, obviously, from my opinion, Twitter has a different type of purpose and use, right. And then you got Facebook. Tell us what you thought. What are your thoughts on the two different platforms?
Boy, that's a good one. I mean, I'm a very, very active member of. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's called the Warrior Forum, which is it's one of the biggest sites in the world for people that discuss SEO, internet marketing. And, that's a very, very good question, because everybody has their own opinion, everybody has their own experience, and everybody thinks differently about it. And it's really about, the one thing as a business owner you should do. And again, most business owners disagree with my thinking of how to go about marketing their business. Most business owners, they want to concentrate on a few things. And I tell them that is the wrong thing to do. Concentrate on a few platforms. Like they say, well, I want to be on Facebook, which, I guess it's pushing 600 million users now. Duh. You definitely want to be on Facebook. And then they'll say, well, then I want to be on this. It'd be this thing, and I want to be on that thing. I don't want to be on too many things because it just confuses people. And then it's a tremendous workload for themselves. If you're on, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, MySpace, and then all these other rogue sites like High Five and Bebo. I mean, it gets nuts. I mean, you can't even do it. But here's the problem: is you got to do it. You have to be on as many things as you can because you don't know what's going to be successful. And it's hard to stay focused at that point because, we were so excited. We're like, oh, this would be a great fit for us. This is going to be a great idea. And so, my team and I sat down, and of course we have all these different ideas. Well, one team member is like, well, I want to target this group and I want it to look like this. And another person saying, well, we should go here and go in this direction. And when it ended up happening, nobody agreed to anything. In fact, one of my team members wanted to call it Fetcho, F-E-T-C-H-O. And so we thought about it, and I was like, it's okay. And we would actually had to buy. Somebody was holding the domain, so we would have had to spend a little bit extra to get it. And then so we're like, oh, let's just go to bed and sleep on it. And so the next day I got up and I'm like, oh yeah, let's do it. Let's call it Fetcho. And so I get on there and it had already been sold to somebody else. So. It's one of those things, so then we just kind of forgot about the project, and we just kind of put it on hold for a couple of days, and then I was just sitting around, and I said, you know what, I'm just going to spend 5 minutes, and I'm going to look around, and I saw that there was a market for cheap jobs, and I saw that there was, that's the thing, I don't think that people spend enough time when they're starting these online things to really do the research to see where they can fit in, because that's the thing is that's why I picked cheap jobs, my cheap jobs, because, I looked in, Google search, and I saw that nearly 6,000 people a month search for cheap jobs. And then you look at the competition, and I looked right at it's funny because I looked exactly at the spot where I was going to be. I looked at it, like if you go to cheap jobs right now, and you go to Google and you type in cheap jobs, that's what I did, and I saw that number 6 or 7 was Kentucky.com, and I'm like, Kentucky.com does not deserve to be in this spot, and I'm going to take that. That is where my site is going to be. And so that's what I did, and I didn't expect it to be there, in 24 hours. I mean, nobody can expect that.
Now, is that SEO or is that pay-per-click?
SEO as far as...
When you said that you were going to take that spot, is that a pay-per-click spot or is that an SEO spot?
No. That's organic. Google, that's the thing is, I think a lot of people get frustrated. I always speak about SEO, and I like to talk about SEO because, that is truly, that's what I do. Like I said, I am CEO of, all software companies and it's my cheap jobs and things like that. But, my specialty is getting sites placed organically by organic search into Google search results, because for me, that's the most valued position. If you can be, for whatever you do, if you're a dishwasher repairman in, Tacoma, Washington, you need, when people put in, dishwashers or dishwasher repair, you need to be number 1 in Google search, because, when you look at, how much Google controls 80% of the market, when you look at, just where the direction, again, things are changing. The people use Google to search for, they use that as what they search for. And then the number 2 that people use for search is YouTube. And Google owns YouTube. So if you can get, your business correctly adapted to what Google likes, boom, you're going to be gold. That's the thing. You sit down with somebody who knows what they're doing and say, hey, I'd like to, get more traffic, get more customers, get more clients, and, the first thing that this person should be telling you is, okay, let's look at, Google organic search, and let's figure out where we can get you. Let's see what we can do. And that's what's gonna lead you to success. That's why we've been so successful. Is that ability to customize whatever we do into what Google wants. And and my SEO work that I have done for companies over the last year, I've got into a lot of arguments and a lot of disagreements with, how things should be done, because, these search engines, they say in order for us to index you, in order for this to be done so, you can be in the top 10, it needs to be done like this, which means there needs to be content on your site. There needs to be this, and your pictures need to be labeled. You need to have a title. You need to have a description, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And people argue with me, and they say, "Well, I don't want to have content on my site, or I want my site to be Flash because that's cool, or da 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 da." And I'm like, well,